It's easy to focus on the big gear items like tents, sleeping bags, and packs. But I think the majority of innovation is happening with tiny items that solve problems we didn't even know we had. For example, dealing with hot pot handles and either burning yourself trying to grab the handles as soon as your water starts boiling, or needing to wait ages for the handles to cool down. What if I told you I have a solution that solves the hot pot handle problem while also reducing the weight in your pack? Today we're talking about 5 innovative gear items that all cost under $20, and we're gonna start with the item that's gonna help keep your hands from getting burnt, and that's the Sulik 46 pot lifter. This little guy weighs 3 grams and pairs perfectly with ultralight pots that are 650 milliliters or less, like the Toke's 550 milliliter light that comes with no handles. I'm sure you've been there where you're boiling water, your water starts to boil, and in excitement because you're so hungry, you go and grab the pot handles and burn yourself. I'll do things like wrap electrical tape around the handles of my pot, but I found that a pot gripper is a much better solution and something that I like a lot more for a couple different reasons. First of all, I find it easier to use a pot gripper to grab the pot and then pour water into my freeze-dried meals. Secondly, it's lighter weight. This little pot gripper only weighs 3 grams, whereas the handles on your pot likely weigh 10 grams or more. I really like the combination of this little carbon fiber pot gripper along with the BRS 3000 stove and the 500 milliliter pot because everything, including a mini Bic lighter, fits inside the pot for a really tiny contained system. Most of my electronics now use USB-C for charging, but I still have a few items that use micro USB and other annoying ports, and I'm not even a dummy iPhone user. In order to solve having to carry a bunch of adapters or different cables, I started using the InCharge 3-in-1 cable. This is just a super ultralight cable that weighs 6 grams and has the ability to charge basically anything that you need. On one side, you have a USB-A connector, so you can plug that into your battery bank. And then on the other side, you have a USB-C port. So you can plug this into your USB-C phone or your InReach, anything that uses USB-C. But if you have something that's micro USB or maybe even lightning like with an iPhone, then you can take off this top part. It still stays attached, but then you get a micro USB connector as well as lightning. It's a 2-in-1 connector, which is really cool. You just have to make sure that it's orientated correctly. So you pretty much have all your bases covered with this little cable that has all of the different attachments that you need. Do you find guy lines for reinforcing your tent when it's windy out as annoying as I do? I'm terrible with knots, so my guy lines are always loosening or coming undone, and it really causes big problems when I'm out in windy conditions. I'm also too lazy to remove them when I don't need them, so they're always staying on the tent and getting all tangled up and causing problems the next time I go to set my tent up. I decided to solve my guy line problem because guy lines are super useful in the wind, and I think I found the solution. The solution involves these little 1-gram line lock hooks. I'll have links in the video description, but they are awesome. The hooks allow you to clip them onto basically any guy out point on your tent, and then using a piece of cord ran through the line lock, you can then run that cord out to a tent stake and then come back and tension off the line lock so that the tent is as tensioned as needed. And then when you're done, you can just unhook it, wrap up the cord, and you're good to go. Because of how easy these are to deploy and how light they are, with 2 meters of cord, they weigh about 6 grams. I just bring a couple of them with me and then I can clip them on to whatever guy out points on the tent that I need them, depending on which direction the wind is coming from. Knowing what the overnight temperature was when you're sleeping in the backcountry is super useful for dialing in your sleep insulation. If you know that the temperature got down to freezing overnight and that you are cold in your sleep system, then the next time that the forecast calls for freezing conditions, then you know to bring more insulation or some extra layers in order to keep warm. If you're not tracking the temperature and you don't know what it was, then you're always kind of just shooting in the dark. When I'm testing gear, I'll often use a Bluetooth thermometer in order to track the temperature throughout the entire night. But most of the time, if I'm not doing really detailed analysis of sleep systems, then I'll bring this little thermometer from ThermoWorks. It's just a lightweight, really easy to use system where it tells you what the min and max temperatures were over the course of the previous 24 hours. Just be careful that if you do turn it off, then you do lose all of your data. So what I do is I set this outside of my tent before I go to bed, and then in the morning, I'll check what the low was overnight. Just having that overnight low gives me a lot of information as to how my sleep system performed so that I can dial it in for the next time I'm out in similar conditions. I never thought I needed an innovative way to hold my tent stakes until I discovered this 4-gram holster sack from All Man's Rights. I've been using this for over 3 years, and there's a couple things that I really love about it. First of all, it's the perfect length to hold a handful of MSR groundhog stakes, the full ones, so that's awesome. The second thing is that it has a really wide opening on it. So it's really easy to reach in, grab tent stakes, even if they are something like a mini groundhog. And then it's also easy to put them back in once you're done with the stakes. I recently had Liv, one of the co-founders of All Man's Rights, onto my podcast, the Gear Priority Podcast. And he's a genius. He's a design genius. And it was really interesting picking his brain about how he went about designing the holster stack, as well as a bunch of other gear. If you're interested in gear, go check out this video right up here where I talk about rising and falling trends for 2023. If you are a merino wool lover, then you might be triggered. Just a warning.